Hello, in today's video, the topic that we'll be discussing is Keynesian model of the business cycle, which was given by J.M. Keynes. In today's video, we'll be particularly understanding the economic fluctuations that are arising out of the aggregate demand in the economy. Now, whenever we were talking about the business cycles, the other economists basically focused upon the supply side factors, that if there is a shortage that is arising in the supply due to certain reasons, the balance in the economy would get disturbed and it would cause a movement in the business cycle which will provide its different phases. But J.M. Keynes suggested that the changes in the business cycle occur due to the changes in the aggregate demand that are happening in the economy, and basically aggregate demand is the wholesome combination of the government spending, the net exports, the consumption and the investment that is made by the people in the economy. So let us study in detail what this particular model of business cycle is all about. Let's talk about the introduction. The first point, as we discussed earlier, it says developed by John Maynard Keynes during the Great Depression. This was the time wherein he got this idea of understanding, of studying in detail why this was happening. The Great Depression, why did it happen? He emphasized on the aggregate demand as the main driver of business cycle. J.M. Keynes advocated that aggregate demand is the main reason, the primary reason for the phases that are arising in the business cycle. He suggests that markets do not always self-correct due to sticky wages and prices. Now, it is a well-known fact that the prices in the economy, the prices of the product, the prices in the market are determined by the market forces, that is the demand and supply. And it is also assumed that generally markets self-correct themselves, auto-correct themselves, whether it is the situation of inflation or it is a situation of depression, recession or deflation. But J.M. Keynes suggested that markets are not always in a condition to self-correct themselves due to sticky wages and prices, which also provided for the multiplier effect in the economy. Now, what multiplier effect was? Multiplier effect said that a decrease in the spending would definitely result in the decrease in income and consumption of the people. Why? Because now people will not be able to demand more because they are not having enough. How can they spend enough? And when they are not spending enough, it is but obvious that there will be a situation wherein the demand for the product is not arising. People don't need a particular product, and since the demand is going down, the people who are engaged in the production of that particular commodity will not be needed, and hence it will create unemployment in the economy. So this was the basic concept of multiplier effect, and this is what he says, that due to sticky wages and prices, it is not always possible for the markets to self-correct themselves. Fourth point he mentions, recommends government intervention to stabilize economic fluctuations. Whatever economic fluctuations are arising in the business cycle, they can be fixed only through the government interventions, either through the fiscal policies or through the monetary policies that can create a balance in the economy. Now, if there is a situation wherein the government spending is high and people have a better spending capacity, and there's a situation of inflation, so the government has to intervene and maintain an equilibrium wherein the government will impose more of taxes due to which the purchasing power of the people would go down. Similarly, if we were talking about the monetary policies and there is a situation of inflation in the economy, people are constantly purchasing more and more and inflation is going up. In that case, the different rates, the quantitative rates could be increased. Why? Because now the money would be coming back to the government or to the banks, and less money would be available for the public for their spending purpose. So this is what government intervention is all about, wherein J.M. Keynes focused that self-correction always is not possible. Government intervention has to be there to stabilize the economic fluctuations in the country. Now, what were the phases of the business cycle? First was the expansion phase, wherein the demand was rising. Since demand rises, but obvious, we are going to increase our production. and for increased production, it is but obvious that people are having more of employment opportunities and they are earning a better income. And again, this would go again in a cycle. If there is better employment opportunity, people are earning more, they have a better income, they'll spend more, and since they're spending more, that means the demand is rising and the production is rising and the employment is rising and the income is rising. It's moving in a complete circle, it's a complete cycle. That is what expansion is all about. Then we talk about the recession phase of the business cycle, wherein the demand is declining, it is going down. Now since the demand is declining, as I said earlier, people are not wanting the product. Now since they are not wanting the product, the demand has gone down and the production has also to be brought down to a certain level, so that you're not running into losses. Your product is lying idle, it makes no sense. So now when the production is also going down, but obvious there are job losses in the economy. Now when people are losing job, they are not able to earn more and they are not able to spend more, which is again a reason for the decline in the demand, right? So this is what recession is all about. Next we have the recovery phase, wherein a stimulus or external factor restores demand and growth, and this stimulus or the external factor is the government intervention, either in the form of the fiscal policies or RBI is approached in the form of the monetary policies, wherein an impetus or stimulus is given to either improve the condition of the economy if there is a situation of depression or deflation, or to slow down the economic fluctuation which is arising due to constant or hyper or galloping inflation in the economy. Next we have the Keynesian's policy recommendations during boom, that is a situation wherein the economy is growing up. Reduce government spending, because we don't want people to have more of purchasing power. So government spending has to be reduced. What would be done in that case? Increase taxes to control inflation. Now when the taxes are increased, but obvious people are paying more of taxes at what they're earning, so now their spending is reduced. Next, raise interest rates to slow excessive borrowing. Now the interest rates that the general public, that is we are paying on the loans that we're taking from the bank, so that rate also has to be increased. So now people will refrain from taking loans and their purchasing power would automatically go down, which would provide for an opportunity to curb inflation in the economy. Next we have the phase of recession. What happens during recession? Increase government spending. Now the government has to intervene and increase its spending for the public. And how it will do that? Reduce taxes to boost consumer spending. Now people have to reduce, the government has to reduce taxes, wherein the people will have to pay less of taxes. Much would be available with them for boosting up their purchasing power, and hence the economy would revive. Next would be lower interest rates to encourage investments. Investments also you will be getting better returns, and interest rates, why they will be lower? Herein we are talking about the loans that we are paying on the interest rate. They would be lowered, the bank rates would be lowered, so that people can take more loans, increase their purchasing power and have a better spending in the economy. Now we'll talk about the last few points, wherein we'll have the criticisms of this particular model of business cycle given by J.M. Keynes, wherein he says excessive government intervention can lead to inflation and debt, which is practically correct, because if government is constantly cutting down taxes, spending more on the general public to boost up the purchasing power, it's but obvious that there will be a situation of rising inflation and more of debt would be created for the government. Why? Because when the government is in shortage of money, it will borrow it from the RBI or any other financial institution that is abroad. Now debt would also be created on the part of the general public, because they are taking loans because they are available at cheaper rate, but might not be possible that they would be able to pay it in the long run. So excessive government intervention should always be avoided and refrained. And as we know, anything up to a particular limit or up to a particular level is good. Beyond that, it is always harmful. Next criticism is some economists argue that markets can self correct over time, so government intervention is not required. So, this is what majorly the economists say, that market phases or the business cycle or the market fluctuations are a very natural process. They are tend to arise, so they self correct themselves. We don't need to intervene into that. It is a natural process. Interventions and interfering into this particular natural state will always create a disruption in the economy. Now, so to conclude this particular topic, the Keynesian model highlights the role of active fiscal and monetary policies. As I said, that the government would either intervene in the form of the fiscal policies, or it would definitely get pursue the RBI, the central bank of the country, to get into the monetary policy. Whether it is the situation of inflation, monetary policies, the quantitative rates will increase. When it is the situation of deflation or depression, the rates would go down to boost the public spending. As we talk about the fiscal policies of the government, when there is a situation of inflation, more of tax would be paid, tax rates would go up, while if there is a situation of deflation or depression, the tax rates would be cut down, so that people are having more of money to spend. It remains influential, especially in economic crisis. This particular model, this particular government intervention is very useful, no matter how many criticisms we have, but it is very, very useful when we are facing a severe economic crisis in the country. In that particular situation, government intervention is bound to happen, and it is the only way of correcting or bringing at equilibrium the market fluctuations that are arising, or the frequent fluctuations of the business cycles. So I hope this particular topic has been clear, and see you in the next video with the next topic.